Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. Today I have a VR to a tag called Altar Books, and this was a tag that was started by Meg at Rose Honey Ritual, and I'll link Meg's video below. And the idea of Altar Books, as it sounds like, is to share the selection of books that we have, say, out on our altars right now. I don't really have an altar space in my house dedicated that has books on it per se, but I do have a tarot reading and divination table and a couple of other little spaces in my home that are pertinent to my spiritual practice. So what I've decided to share is the little stack of books that I have currently out and kind of ready to hand in the context of my spiritual practice. Most of my books, like the ones back there, are shelved in specific places and in a specific order, and unless I need them, I'll take one out and look at it and put it back. Everything kind of has its own place, including books I haven't yet read, which are in their own little pile. But these are the books that are kind of in use, okay? that are not currently shelved, that are out, that I am working with in various kinds of ways in the context of my personal practice. So that's how I've interpreted altar books for myself. And so without further ado, the books that I have, the first one that I always have around is probably a fairly obvious one, which is my journal. And this is just a lined notebook that I found at a bookstore. I'm not too particular about my journals. When one fills up, I get another one. As long as it's lined and as long as the paper is decent and the pen doesn't bleed through, then I'm happy. I don't bullet journal or anything fancy like that. My journaling is just my handwriting inside. Sometimes journaling readings that I've done for myself or just journaling more generally. So my journal is always out. The next book that I'll mention is the newest one to me, so I actually haven't read the vast majority of this book, so I'm limited in what I can say about it, but I'm excited to have it, and that is the Druid's Book of Ceremonies, Prayers, and Songs. And this is a anthology of 35 different contributions from members of the Ancient Order of Druids in America, which I am a member of, a fairly recent member of. So this is a assortment of different poems, ideas for rituals, things around things like new and full moons, or there's one in here for naming a baby, or for going for a walk in the forest. There are poems in here and songs with sheet music accompanying them, and all different kinds of ideas here for ritual and for celebration that are very flexible. So this was put together and published before I ever joined the AODA, but I have seen the invitation for contributions for this book that became this book, and it kind of specified that because Druidry and AODA Druidry in particular is so diverse, that the contributions be nature focused or earth focused and fairly kind of general, as opposed to presuming particular concepts of deity, for example, like presuming polytheism or pantheism or animism or atheism or any of these kinds of frameworks, because of course there are druids with all of those belief systems and more. So it's a very open-ended, book with selections that could be worked with for an individual or for a group or a grove. And I've enjoyed what I've read so far, which again is not much yet, but I'm looking forward to reading more. I also have out Elemental Divination, a Dice Oracle by Stephen Ball. I've talked about this before. This is one of my favorite oracle systems that I've ever worked with. As the name suggests, it uses dice. And I was working with this for one of the weeks of the October Embrace the Magical reading prompts put on by Kelly over at The Truth in Story on Instagram. So I have this out, and briefly the idea is that you roll 3 dice. 2 of them indicate different elements, and then the third indicates which of the 2 elements is more present or more powerful than the other. And of course, since you're rolling 3 dice, you could get the same element twice. So it's this kind of system about elemental energies and how they might interact in a situation. What does it mean to have water present but have fire come in stronger than that? Or what does it mean to have earth present and have a little bit of air enter into that situation? Things like this. And I really like just reading this book. I really like Stephen Ball's writing in this book. It is a kind of system that I think becomes intuitive once you've worked with it for a while. Like, you don't really need the book once you have a sense of how you consider the elements to interact, but I really like reading the book. So this is something that I will often work with for things like a daily draw, or I guess it's a daily roll in this case. But I very often have this book out, and I have since I got it. I think it's just fantastic. The deck that I have, the book. The next book that I have was also mentioned in the VR to this tag by Allison over at Tech Coven. We both love this book. And that book is Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals. And folks will know, of course, that I love working with the energies of animals and exploring the lessons that animals can teach us. And this book is just beautiful and incredible. It's by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. And Alexis Pauline Gumbs is also a poet who's published several other books. And her writing is just incredible. I love to open this book and just turn to, a passage and see what it might have to share with me on a given day. And there's lots of little parts in the book where I've drawn, little hearts beside or underlined. And to give a sense, I'll just read a little piece from where this little heart that I drew in the margin, which is talking about dorsal fins and dolphins. So it asks, how did dolphins get dorsal fins anyway? Unlike fish, they don't have bones that support a dorsal fin. The mammals they evolved through and from before returning to the ocean didn't have dorsal fins. They aren't a vestige of limbs like tail flukes and side fins may be. The prevailing explanation is that dolphins evolved the dense tissue that became dorsal fins because they needed to in order to live in the wild movement of the ocean. In other words, dolphins evolved dorsal fins from practice across generations, by accepting that the ocean would always move and becoming accordingly. An embodied emphasis towards balance. That's what I'm talking about. So, highly, highly, highly recommend this wonderful, wonderful book. This has been another one that is out regularly since I got it. I really love this book. The next book, the second to last one that I have to share, is called Pantheologies, Gods, Worlds, Monsters by Mary Jane Rubenstein. And this is a book about pantheist philosophy and the idea of pantheism and ways in which pantheism has been depicted and in particular has been demonized as particularly threatening or blasphemous, particularly in Christian context. So it's an exploration of a number of pantheist authors, like Baruch Spinoza is in here a lot, and explores also from a very explicitly feminist and anti-racist perspective. I really, really like this book a lot. It's a challenging book. It's definitely a work of scholarship and of philosophy. And being someone who describes myself as a pantheist, who identifies as a pantheist, this book has really been one that has pushed my thinking and has helped my thinking in very productive ways, I think. And so just very briefly from the inside jacket to give a sense of what this book is about. Pantheism is the idea that God and the world are identical, that the creator, sustainer, destroyer, and transformer of all things is the universe itself. From a monotheistic perspective, this notion is irredeemably heretical, since it suggests divinity might be material, mutable, and multiple. Since the excommunication of Baruch Spinoza, Western thought has therefore demonized what it calls pantheism, accusing it of incoherence, absurdity, and with striking regularity, monstrosity. In this book, Mary Jane Rubenstein investigates this perennial repugnance through a conceptual genealogy of pantheisms. What makes pantheism quote-unquote monstrous, at once repellent and seductive, is that it scrambles the raced and gendered distinctions that Western philosophy and theology insist on drawing between activity and passivity, spirit and matter, animacy and inanimacy, and creator and created. So this is a really incredible text, a at times quite dense work of philosophy that since I've read it, and I've underlined quite a lot in this book, I've gone back and reread sections of it. I will probably reread it in its entirety again. It has really given me so much to think about, so I appreciate this book very much, and it is very frequently sitting out as well. The last book that I will share as a altar book that I have out around me, that's going to be out around me for quite a long time from now going forward, is Nature's Year in the Kawarthas, A Guide to the Unfolding Seasons by Drew Monkman. And this is a book about my local eco region or biozone. I live in the Kawartha Lakes region in Ontario. And what this book does is it has one chapter for each month of the year. And then for each month, it includes information about what different animals are doing in terms of things like migrations and breeding seasons, and what kind of animals and insects and birds and so on that you can hear, that you can see at any given time in either all month, early month, mid-month, or late month. And then it also includes what plants are doing, what kind of flowers you can see at the side of the road most prominently in any given month, what the temperatures are like, what constellations are visible in any given month, and where in the sky you can see them, and so on. So there's a lot of information in this book. So what I've been doing with this is reading the month, the chapter for the month on the first day of the month. And this has become a little bit of a monthly ritual for me, where I will read the chapter, let's say like the October chapter, on October 1st, and I'll take a couple of notes on it. And then throughout the month of October, I'll kind of look for the things that are mentioned and pay attention to, who I'm seeing out in nature in terms of the animals and the plants that are present. And it's really just facilitating greater conscious awareness, I guess, of all of my non-human neighbors in my area. And it has a couple of, it's mostly just text. It has some nice pencil drawings here and there of different things, but it's really just making me pay attention more, and it's also giving me vocabulary that I didn't necessarily have to know who's who, so to speak. So I'm really enjoying this book, and I started it in, I think, June, so I'll be reading it through the year until, I guess that would be May 2022, as I read every single chapter on the first of the month. And so this has been really enjoyable to explore. Those are my current altar books. I'm keen to see if other folks do more VRs to this tag. If you have any of these books, or if you love any of these books, let me know in the comments, or let me know what books you might include as your current altar books. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.